Let's get back to You Better You Bet on the BetMGM Network.
Virginia Tech up 34-31 on California at halftime in the ACC tournament. That is significant to some because some of us on this show had Virginia Tech first half plus 1.5 and first half under 65.5. And we cashed both of those. No sweats whatsoever.
No sweat.
But Virginia Tech,
None.
up by 3. Absolutely love that. Also, upset in the Big 12 tournament. A stinky line today out in Kansas City between the 16-seed Colorado and the 9-seed TCU. Jared Smith, wouldn't you know it? Colorado 69-67 over TCU as they pull off the upset. So TCU going home, West Virginia, Colorado tomorrow in the second round of the Big 12 tournament. What do you think? Can Colorado make it 2 in a row? Would you take them tomorrow against West Virginia? We'll have to see what that number is. I would think WVU would probably be like 6.5, 5.5.
Yeah, let's take a look at what they were earlier this year. Let me pull up my West Virginia numbers. West Virginia, Colorado this year. At Colorado on January 12th, they were a 2.5-point dog. They won by 8, and that was their only matchup of the year. So you would think 2.5-point dog on the road probably should be, I don't know, pick 'em. Maybe a slight favorite, 3-point favorite.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, that's what they were today against TCU. TCU closed about 3.5-point favorites, so we'll see what that ends up being tomorrow. We also have, I got to get a score on that Utah Tech game because that was a stinky line today. They're going up against Southern Utah. Utah Tech had lost 14 straight games, yet they were favored by 6.5 points today. And Jared, they're up 11 at halftime.
What a shocker
on Southern Utah. There you go. There's a market indicator for you right there.
Yes, it is.
That Utah Tech was the right side. So they're up 11 right now. 1 minute to go until halftime. 10.5-point favorites currently on the live line. Back to the NFL. We talked about the quarterbacks earlier on in the show. And before we move on, real quick, worth mentioning, next segment, we're going to talk about our poll question that we have for today. So make sure you go and vote. You can go to X. We ask you, the listener, the viewer, who's the best quarterback on the Colts roster right now? Is it Daniel Jones or is it Anthony Richardson? So
it's such a troll question.
Some good options to choose from for you guys. You go decide which quarterback you think is better, Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. All right, let's talk about some more of these other teams in the NFL and what they did in free agency. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, Jared. Obviously, they have been to 3 straight Super Bowls. They were unable to complete the three-peat. You just told me during break that they just lost Justin Reed to free agency. Where did Justin Reed end up going? What team?
Saints made a couple moves today. I think they signed Juwan Johnson, their tight end, and
they did.
And Justin Reed. The Saints are an interesting team. I mean, we'll see what they do at quarterback, but yeah, obviously the Chiefs. That the bigger half of that picture is the Chiefs losing Justin Reed more so than the Saints gaining him.
100%. Yeah, we can talk about the Saints in a bit. So the Chiefs, Justin Reed is gone. Nick Bolton did re-sign, big part of that defense, 3-year, $45 million deal. And then also they bring Hollywood Brown back on a 1-year deal as well. I think, Jared, the way to bet the Chiefs for the upcoming season is Patrick Mahomes MVP at 7-1. I think that's how you bet them because I think he's going to be highly motivated. Year 2 is Xavier Worthy. Full year of Hollywood. Rashee Rice comes back from injury. I expect them to probably add another weapon in the draft now that they're losing Hopkins and, Juju Smith-Schuster really isn't that much of a help to you. Kelsey's obviously not getting any younger. And the way that the season ended, obviously, and now no more Joe Thuney. They got to find his replacement on the offensive line.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to sit well with Mahomes this offseason that they did not score 30 points in any regular season games this year. The only time they did it was in the AFC title game against Buffalo. So Mahomes obviously hasn't won it in about 3 years, and I think the fact that that's the case too, voters now going to be more inclined to probably give him another one. It certainly feels like we're kind of going through the AFC quarterbacks, Jared, and Lamar's won his 2, Allen got his, Mahomes has his 2. So certainly if the Bengals win games and Burrow has the year that he did this past season, it's going to be tough for Burrow not to get it. But look, if Burrow struggles a little bit, if he suffers another injury, we know injuries have certainly plagued him throughout his career. If the Bengals still can't figure out their issues on defense, because they're probably going to lose Trey Hendrickson, I think that opens up the door for Mahomes. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be way too trendy. Not to say I don't think he's going to have a good year or he's not going to put up MVP caliber numbers. Just way too trendy for me.
Agreed.
I also think, again, Joe Burrow, way too trendy. Jordan Love, I think, is going to be a popular 25-1 type pick. I think some people could be interested in Stafford now that they have Devontae Adams there as well. But, Jared, I've actually predicted the MVP 3 straight years, and I've never bet the market. And I'm not going to continue.
Really?
3 straight years. Mahomes, Lamar, Allen. I've done it 3 straight years, and I've never bet it. And I'm not going to continue to bet it so that everybody else can win money while I just sit here and predict who's going to win the award. I really liked Lamar 2 years ago. I thought, finally, without Greg Roman, all these people are going to see just how good Lamar is, and shockingly, he wins MVP. Josh Allen this past year, I thought without Stephon Diggs, he was going to finally just be able to play quarterback, and he wasn't going to have this voice in the back of his head where he feels like he has to force feed somebody the ball. And I just look at this season for the Chiefs, and we'll see if they continue to make moves in free agency. But I think a lot of us would agree it's so hard to get to the Super Bowl 3 straight times. And I just think it's going to be really tough for the Chiefs to get back there again. Obviously, they have Buffalo's number in the playoffs. They have Baltimore's number. Cincinnati, it really feels like, is the only team you would probably trust against Kansas City in the playoffs. I just don't think Kansas City's making it deep in the postseason, Jared. So I wouldn't be interested in betting any futures on them. Wouldn't be interested in the win total as well, especially when they won 15 games last year and weren't that great of a team, it felt like. So I think the bet with Kansas City, now that they've re-signed Hollywood, Rashee Rice is going to be back, year 2 a Worthy. When I look at this team, I think Patrick Mahomes 7-1 to win MVP. I think that's the bet with Kansas City.
First of all, make sure we clip this now. It's March 11th, and the MVP race for 25, so it's already decided. I mean, because the Oracle, PJ, the MVP Oracle has spoken. I can't believe that you keep predicting this. You would think after the first year you did it, you would have bet it the next year when Josh, you would have thought, but listen, you're a very loyal individual. You don't want to ruin the market for the other people, the peons like us that are trying to get ahead here. I know it's a very sound handicap. It really is, because I think 2 things are true in the MVP market. I think last year we have finally reached the point where don't even consider a non-quarterback. If Saquon can't win the MVP last year after what he did and all those things, we have now reached the point in the NFL betting markets where the MVP has split completely away from any other offensive player. I just don't think we're at that point anymore. I think the voters are kind of trained to go to the rookie or the receivers and the running backs for the Offensive Player of the Year award, and then we the quarterbacks. It's kind of like Cy Young and MVP in baseball. There's 2 different awards, and we just keep these things completely separate from each other. So that being said, the first 17 players on the market at BetMGM are all quarterbacks. So again, and Saquon's the first non-quarterback. And I love Saquon, but he's not having the same kind of year he had last year. That was a one shooting star kind of year for Saquon Barkley. So eliminate any non-quarterback from your headspace here. And I think I can draw a line after Jaden Daniels. Is there a non-zero chance that Jaden Daniels improves in year 2 and plays better, and all of a sudden Washington's a number 1 seed kind of team in the NFC? Yes. I think there's a non-zero chance of that happening, but I think I need more than 11-1. And I think I need a little. So I'm kind of drawing the line at Jaden Daniels, and I'm thinking it's Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, or Jackson. I'm thinking it's a core 4 that I'm willing to bet now because I feel like it's going to hold value throughout the course of the year, of course, barring injuries. The way you broke it down was perfect. I don't want to add anything to that handicap. The only thing I'll say is it's obvious that the Chiefs are very interested in improving their offensive line. I know they lost Tooney, but they added Jalen Moore, who I think is more important when it comes to blocking because he plays left tackle. And so if they do make an addition in the draft at receiver to continue to give Mahomes weapons, if they do continue to replace the interior of the offensive line and get Mahomes more protection, I think it's obvious the direction that we're going here. I also think that Elijah Mitchell signing's a under the radar kind of signing too. I think the Chiefs need a steady running back to take some of the pressure off and to not be the Chiefs running backs over the last few years during this run, they've been all change-up kind of backs. They haven't been bell cows. I think Mahomes could use a Derrick Henry type. I'm not saying Elijah Mitchell is Derrick Henry, but I think he would offer a little bit more stability, a little more physicality at that position than the Clyde Edwards-Helaire type players and the Isaiah Pacheco type guys that have been a little more scat back, a little more change-ups over the last few years. So I think having stability at the running back position would be very important, and also continuing to build the offensive line is huge. But, yeah, I mean, plus 750, I feel like I've already made the bet in my mind.
I mean, look, and you just play process of elimination, right? I agree with you. You draw the line right at above Jaden Daniels, right? So he's 11-1. Jalen Hurts is 20-1. I think we all agree we love Jalen Hurts in big games. We love him in the playoffs. Do you like him for a regular season award, though? Like, he just doesn't put up the numbers, so I wouldn't bet him. Stroud, they got Nico Collins there, but they just traded away like no offensive line.
No offensive line.
Yeah, so I can't get there. Justin Herbert at 25-1. Jared, I don't know how you feel about Justin Herbert. I think he's one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the league. I think he's super talented, but I think we talk about this guy like he's a top 5 quarterback, and I don't understand it. And again, the Chargers really haven't done anything to help him at the receiver position. They do get Najee Harris. No interest there. Jared Goff at 25-1. The Lions got all these weapons on offense, but not without Ben Johnson. That's exactly right. Again, Jordan Love, I think, will be the interesting piece because he's going to be healthy coming into this year.
He's an interesting name. He's an interesting name.
I just
because they have the weapons.
They do. Josh Jacobs is a good running back. I like Love. I think he could be worth a flyer potentially at 25-1. He could be. Brock Purdy 28-1. I'm good there. Then like Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott. I think Caleb Williams could be trendy at 35-1, right? Just because of how much we love Ben Johnson. You still got the receiving weapons there. They're trying to clearly make improvement on the O-line. I think Caleb will be popular, but I don't want Tua. I don't want Kyler Murray. So
here's an interesting one.
Yeah,
How about Drake May?
So it's interesting you say that. There's going to be a quarterback this year in the NFL that takes a big jump, right? It's going to be Drake May, it's going to be Penix, or it's going to be Bryce Young maybe, who we saw play really good football the final 6-7 weeks that maybe could take an either bigger step, right? We see this all the time in the NFL. So is Drake that guy for you? Like if I gave you those three, if I gave you Drake May, Michael Penix, and Bryce Young, and said, Jared, which quarterback do you think is? You think it's Drake? Okay.
Well, I think New England. I think Vrabel has the chance to congeal that roster. Like you're already seeing him bring in his guys.
Yes.
And I think if the it kind of feels like a situation where if the culture snaps back into place in New England, and they go out and get another weapon, they've done everything else. I mean, they've had arguably the best free agency of any team. And yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement right now around New England. And also, you have to take into account the division that they play in. I would say is very, I don't want to say up for grabs, but you're not high on Miami. You're not high on New England. I mean, you're not high on the Jets, excuse me. So of those 3 teams, I'm the highest, I think, on New England in terms of their upside. I think Drake, I mean, it's all about the price, right? It's 66-1. So, we're not going to win this bet after week 4. But if Drake May bursts onto the scene that first month of the year, and all of a sudden he's 30-1 after, the end of September, I could see that.
It's interesting. I mean, you mentioned Vrabel's bringing in his guys, right? So they got Morgan Moses to help protect them, and then they really made some moves on defense. They got Spillane from the Raiders, Landry from the Titans, Carlton Davis from the Lions, Milton Williams as well. So, like you said, I mean, he's trying to turn it into what it was in Tennessee, right? He wants to be a physical defense. He wants to be great on that side of the ball, build up the O-line, and then they're just hoping that in the draft with these high skill position players that they get, he can get his Derrick Henry, he can get his A.J. Brown, he can get his weapons. And then certainly...
What if they get Travis Hunter at 4?
It's... With Vrabel, now that we're talking through this and we're thinking about how Vrabel builds his teams, I think Hunter to New England makes a ton of sense.
I totally agree. 100%.
But do you think they would make him a two-way player, or they would only have him play receiver? I think they'd only have him play receiver.
I've heard he has done really well at receiver. Like he's really shown people that he can play the position. I haven't heard as much positivity about his cornerback skills, but that's a tougher it's tougher to grade that, I think, until you see him against NFL receivers.
Right.
Because he didn't really, at the Big 12 level at Colorado, he wasn't asked to really do as much, I think, back there as maybe he would be in the NFL. I mean, that's a really I'll be honest, Drake May 66-1. That's a bet I'd be willing to make. And not because I think he can win, is because I think that number could come down significantly if all of a sudden New England goes from New England was supposed to be the worst team in the NFL last year. All of a sudden, if they're a contender, it moves the needle significantly higher, much quicker.
Look, we've seen it the last couple of years, right? Houston goes one of the worst teams in the NFL to a playoff team with Stroud, Washington with Daniels. Maybe Drake May and the Patriots this upcoming year. We'll see. We'll talk about our social poll to wrap up hour number 3. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM.
We'll be right back with You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas.